The first American-born pope has made a historic apology this morning in legitimizing the Vatican's role in slavery.
The popes who gave European kings permission to enslave people, he called it a wound in Christian memory.
You must never forget that the Roman Catholic Church was involved in slavery, and they have apologized for it.
The first American pope on Memorial Day did what no pope has ever done before.
What if I told you that the Vatican helped Europe colonize the world, that it justified European colonialism in the name of spreading Christianity?
He didn't apologize for slavery. He did something bigger. He apologized for the church's role in legitimizing it. In the 1400s, popes issued these decrees called papal bulls. They sent them around to all these European kingdoms, basically saying, you have our authority to enslave people that aren't Christian. This gave Portugal and Spain the moral cover to begin what we know as chattel slavery. In the 1440s and 1450s, Portugal began kidnapping and purchasing enslaved Africans. But in 1452, Portugal started its first sugarcane plantation on the island of Madeira. It was the first time enslaved Africans were used on an industrial scale to produce a cash crop. It's also where we begin to see Christopher Columbus and Spanish explorers begin to go to North and South America and the Caribbean, enslaving and ending the lives of thousands of indigenous people. The transatlantic slave trade would have never happened if the church did not authorize it.
So the Pope said sorry, and many of you are holding on to that are really
Americans. Yeah, y'all ain't know Black Americans started this holiday. It was newly freed Black Americans who found a mass grave of Union soldiers, the same soldiers who had just fought for our rights to be free and seen as human. So they took those soldiers, dug them up from this mass grave, gave them each a burial, honored them, gave them a cemetery and a ceremony where Black children sang and Black leaders spoke. And every year after that, Black leaders would speak on how to stop the rise of the Confederacy again, celebrating those fallen Union soldiers who fought for our rights to be free. And Pope Leo chose today, this Black-ass holiday, to apologize for the Vatican's role in slavery.
Now, in the 15th century, the Vatican authorized the conquering of Africa and enslaving non-Christians. Previous popes apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but none had publicly acknowledged the explicit role the Vatican had in allowing this to happen.
This is not a moral awakening. Most people hear Pope Leo XIV apologize for the Vatican's role in slavery and think that the Catholic Church finally grew a conscience. That's not what happened. Remember how back in March, 123 nations at the UN, led by the African Union, Black Diaspora advocates, and Reparations scholars, voted to declare chattel slavery the greatest crime against humanity? And now, 2 months later, Leo drops an apology in his first encyclical?
Hey guys, so welcome back to this channel. It's your girl Candy. Today's episode, and you know what really shocked me in this whole situation? Not the apology, not the statement, not even the history. What shocked me is how late the apology came. For countries, millions of Black people were kidnapped, chained, stoned, separate from their families, and treated like poverty. Now, in 2026, suddenly the church wants to say we are sorry. That is supposed to heal generation from damaging. Come on, let's be real here. This is bigger than words. This is about accountabilities, because when people talk about slavery, they often act like it was just even king and great traits, acts alone. But history tells a different story. Powerful religions, the situation gave more approval to colonists and slaves. Paris craved to more talks like this, and capture non-Christian and profit from human suffering. Think about that for a second. Entire system of oppression we are spiritually justified. Don't forget to like, subscribe to this channel. I will be back for more conversations like this.
Perpetrator's growth as the story and erases the labor of the people who actually forced the change. Institutions respond to consequences, not conscience. The cost of staying silent went up. Yesterday's price is not today's price. With 123 nations on record, global reparations pressure building, and a new pope with Black ancestry who couldn't possibly dodge it, yeah, it's past time. When it comes to the U.S. apologizing and providing reparations, do you think that they're gonna do right? Don't hold your breath, because I already know there's someone in the comments right now that think even apologizing is out of the question.
Direct contravention of the papal decree, church and its sovereigns, the cross and all Cretinism mission to vanquish, capture, and subdue the Moorish kingdom, dominions, possession, goods, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. The papal bull further justified the enslavement of non-Christian people. Non-Christian people were considered heathens. Papal bulls were issued accordingly by Pope Nicholas V, titled the Bull Romanus Pontifex of January 8, 1455, in favor of Portugal, and Pope Alexander VI, inter cetera, among the Spanish shields. A papal bull is a formal public decree, letter, or charter issued by the Pope of the Catholic Church. Papal bull of May 4, 1493, forbidding anyone subject to the interdict, under the pains of excommunication, to speak of these manuscripts.
Then you must excommunicate half of Christendom, because half the world is against us.
For the Vatican itself, giving European powers authority basically to conquer and enslave non-Christians. The article points to 15th century article decrees that authorized Portuguese rulers to invade lands in Africa and the Americas to reduce people to perpetual slavery. One decree from 1452, literally called Dum Diversas, reportedly gave permission to invade, conquer, fight, and subjugate non-Christians. Another decree later helped form what is known now today as the Doctrine of Discovery, which was used to justify colonial land seizures. Pope Leo said it took 18 centuries to fully recognize
Christianity. That there are papal decrees that allowed European empires to take over entire countries. And for what? To allow colonizers to subjugate people, to take away their lands, wage war on their cultures, impose a self-conceived notion of racial superiority over them. And all of this just because the colonizers claimed that they were the ones who discovered new lands. So they had a right to rule over those new lands. Now, the Vatican has come forward and apologized for what it did. It has apologized for helping the colonizers. Here's a report.
Have you heard something called the Doctrine of Discovery? It's Europe's version of finders, keepers. It's what European colonizers used to subjugate the world. The doctrine was cited by Europeans who discovered new lands, and the doctrine traces its roots back to the Vatican and to the Catholic Church. Now the Church has apologized for helping colonizers in their conquests. On Thursday, the Vatican issued an unprecedented statement. It officially apologized for its historical role in justifying colonialism by European powers. The Vatican said, the Roman Catholic Church repudiates those concepts that fail to recognize the inherent human rights of indigenous peoples, including what has become known as the legal and political doctrine of discovery. It also declared that the doctrine is not part of the Christian faith, but the Vatican is centuries late. The doctrine of discovery is a concept laid out in the so-called papal bulls. What are these? These are usually official statements from the head of the Catholic Church. That would be the Pope. So no less than the popes were involved in justifying European colonialism. Their decrees were used extensively in the conquest of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Africa, and the United States. The colonizers claimed that they had the approval of the church to have sovereignty, property, and commercial rights in lands they discovered. Here's an example. Papal decrees in the 15th century permitted Portugal to subjugate Muslims and the non-Christians in Africa. That's not even the ugliest part of these decrees. The Vatican was quite explicit when it came to who Europe would colonize. It could only be non-Christians. So colonialism was essentially used as a tool by the Vatican to spread Christianity across the world. And the colonized countries paid a huge price. Take Canada, for instance. Between the 19th and the 20th centuries, more than 150,000 indigenous children were taken hostage in Canada. They were snatched away from their families and lodged against their will in the re-education institutions. Here, they were subjected to unspeakable atrocities. They were physically assaulted and sexually abused. Many of them didn't survive. They were buried in mass graves that are still being discovered in Canada. Last year, Pope Francis visited Canada. He apologized to the indigenous people for what the Vatican put them through. In 2015, too, the Pope...
I can remember times, talking to my grandfather, and that how there were men that, even in his time, that called themselves Christians, but still put on hoods and white robes and carried crosses and still hung people. Yeah, they did. The church has been complicit in a lot of things, and they still are, even on today. Yeah.
That there are papal decrees that allowed European empires to take over entire countries. And for what? To allow colonizers to subjugate people, to take away their lands, wage war on their cultures, impose a self-conceived notion of racial superiority over them. And all of this just because the colonizers claimed that they were the ones who discovered new lands.
That is so important to think about today, and it's part of the breaking news, is how Magnificat Humanitas talks about new slavery and how this technological age via artificial intelligence is part of a moment of new slavery or a new chapter of new slavery. And you cannot talk about new slavery without what? Talking about the history of chattel slavery. And so as such, in this encyclical, Pope Leo apologizes for the church's role in being very complacent during chattel slavery. And I want to just read this excerpt. Pope Leo says on page 60 of this document, I wanted to give you all the citational evidence, and it's going to be a little bit long, but bear with me for a second. So he says, open quote, in the development of her doctrine, the church has gradually come to a deeper awareness of the gravity of these issues being slavery or new slavery. It is true that past events cannot be judged anachronistically, as though the moral criteria that matured over time had always been available. Yet neither can we deny or diminish the delay with which both society and the church came to denounce the scourge of slavery. In other words, church and the society took too damn long to denounce slavery. In antiquity and the Middle Ages, many individuals and even ecclesiastical institutions had slaves. Already in the early modern period, the Apostolic See of Rome, responding to requests from sovereigns, intervened several times in order to regulate and legitimize forms of subjugation and, in certain cases, the enslavement of infidels. So the church had its hands in chattel slavery, right? It was only in the 19th century that a formal, absolute, and universal condemnation of slavery was clearly articulated, notably under who? Pope Leo XIII. This development offers a clear example of the church's growth in understanding the perennial truths of revelation that she safeguards. Although there was not always consistency in practice, given that slavery was long tolerated before being unequivocally condemned, there has been a continuous affirmation throughout history of the dignity of every human being created in the image of God, even if it took 18 centuries for its full incompatibility with slavery to be explicitly recognized. So there, Pope Leo is like, human beings, Black and African people, are made in the image of God. Slavery is not compatible with according dignity and worth to those made in the image of God. And we fucked up, y'all. We fucked up. He continues, this constitutes a wound in Christian memory. It does, one from which we cannot consider ourselves detached. He is saying the church must be accountable and accept responsibility for dragging its damn feet for so long. It is impossible not to feel deep sorrow when contemplating the immense suffering and humiliation endured by so many, in stark contrast to the immeasurable dignity as persons infinitely loved by the Lord. For this, in the name of the church, I sincerely ask for pardon. For this, in the name of the church, I sincerely ask for pardon. Notice, this ain't got nothing to do with God. God did not condone slavery. Man, created in the image of God, distorting that very image, becoming egotistical, because friends, we always have to think about, is it ego or is it God? Often it's ego, just because it's loud, it ain't God, right? And so this is why Pope Leo is saying, for this in the name of the church, this man-made institution carrying out religion as it sees fit, distorted interpretations that allowed slavery to happen for as long as it did. For this in the name of that church, I sincerely ask for pardon. And here's the last paragraph that I will read. This is why the memory of past complicity and blindness in the face of the injustice of slavery becomes a call to vigilance. What we have learned must be translated into discernment and responsibility in the present. If we want to avoid the need to ask for pardon again in the future for having failed to respect the treasure of human dignity that is required by our faith, it falls to us today to denounce clearly and firmly trafficking in its many forms, and together with all who are committed to this cause, to support concrete efforts of prevention, protection, liberation, and rehabilitation, close quote. So this is the big news of the day, of the weekend, possibly of the summer, coming out of Vatican City, that the church via Pope Leo has denounced its role in being complacent about the matters of slavery, which impinged on the human rights of Black and brown people. Because he even says, even today, colonialism assumes new forms. I know this document is gonna be lit. Why? Because Pope Leo is a Chicago-style pope, a spicy pope, one of the spiciest that we've had in some time. So I expect this to be a lot of hot fire. And what I'm probably gonna be doing is reading a chapter a day. This is 5 chapters, 5 chapters, and then giving a little debrief. So for the Catholics or those who are nosy and interested in what the Catholics are doing, this is what I'm gonna be doing over the next week, in addition to whatever else tickles my fancy.
You get many of the popes who are in support of slavery thereafter, and it is not until 1888 when you have the first Pope Leo the 13th, who says that slavery is condemned, that God loves all his children, including the Africans and the Americans. But in 1880, slavery around the modern world at that time frame, the Western world, and had already been abolished. So they were Johnny come lately to the party. They changed when the culture changed. You see, before that, the popes all had made these papal bulls based on what the culture was already doing, or they were establishing the culture themselves. Popes like Pope Gregory himself had slaves. So it was common for them to do whatever the culture was doing. But now Pope Leo the 14th has come out and said that they apologize. And he's asking for those who are the descendants of those slaves, those who are the descendants of the colonization in Africa, to give them a pardon, to forgive them. You see, a pardon, it's an interesting word. You see, when you pardon someone, you say that, yes, you committed a crime, but I'm not going to punish you for the crime, nor do I seek any type of repayment from that crime. You just pardon. It's wiped away. It's a clean slate. Because, as he said, this is a stain in the memory of Christianity. You would have to be a fool to accept this with any type of glee, because there are no teeth behind it, none whatsoever. It reminds me of World War II. If you were to go do the research of the aftermath of World War II, then one of the things that you're going to find is the Conference of Jewish Material Claims Agency, claims against Germany. In that, up to 2005, tens of billions of euros have been paid back to the victims of the Holocaust. Not just to those who had survived the Holocaust, but to the descendants as well. Lands that were stolen, payments have been received back. Lands in other countries, payments have been received. There are still, to this day, this organization just acquired another $105 million that will be paid out through 2027, meaning that it is still being paid today. Reparations to the descendants of those who are survivors of the Holocaust. reparations to those whose families were destroyed and whose society was devastated by the Holocaust. You see, the Pope coming out and saying that, please pardon us, please forgive us, we're all God's children, but without any type of reparations being paid to the countries or the people that it has most affected, it lacks teeth. It's interesting how the European Jews were able to get money to.
Please guys, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget, when next you see my video, don't forget to watch, because I will be back for real conversations like this. Bye.